Hey everyone, this is Kim Jacobs, and yes, you are watching the Kim Jacobs Show. But today I'm going to do something a little different for you. Many of you may not know I actually have 3 children with cystic fibrosis, and there are over 30,000 people in the United States alone that have the disease cystic fibrosis, 70,000 worldwide. But people usually don't even know what the disease is. So I try to inform people. I say, it's a disease state where a lot of sticky mucus kind of wraps around your lungs and your bronchial tubes and your pancreatic area, and it debilitates those areas to the point where it causes severe respiratory infections or infections that are really difficult for a person that has this disease to be able to fight it off. And so out of the 5 children that my husband and I have, 3 of them have been diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. And we didn't even know, literally at birth, that any of them had it. It wasn't until some significant life-altering situations happened that we found out that they had the disease. My daughter, for example, and I'll give you just a brief example of one of the 3, she was throwing up this really thick, sticky, alien-like mucus every day, projectile style, 8 to 10 times a day. And every time that she would throw this sticky mucus up, my husband, I was like trying to pull it out of her system, and I was like, what is this alien-like substance that's sticking in my daughter's lungs? I did not know what it was at the time. And my husband and I both agreed that we have to get some help for our daughter because her eyes were sunken down and very, very frail looking. And we took her to major medical institutions to determine what type of disease my daughter has. So we ended up finding out only because she developed pneumonia. And when she developed pneumonia, we went to Levine's Children's Hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the doctor there shared with us that she has permanent lung damage. Now, I'm going to try my best to get through all of this without being emotional if I can, but we'll see. When I found out that my daughter had permanent lung damage, irreversible lung damage, and that she was not going to be able to have those parts of her lungs repaired again, it was overwhelming, to say the least, for me. Very overwhelming. So I then obviously started diving into learning more about what this particular disease was when they said, your daughter has cystic fibrosis. So to hear that diagnosis and not even know what the disease was at all, hadn't heard of the disease, was really mind-boggling for me. So on today's show, I'm not going to go through every nook and cranny of my life, but I will tell you that there's a movie out called 5 Feet Apart, and I thought that this would be a great opportunity for me to just talk to you guys a little bit more about cystic fibrosis and give you my view of the movie 5 Feet Apart. So let's get started. Cystic fibrosis is a hereditary disease. It's something that comes if a mom and a dad are carriers of the gene, the cystic fibrosis gene. And so in this case, my husband and I are both carriers and did not even know that we even were carriers of CF. It's abbreviated as CF. Now with this particular disease state, it actually goes to the extreme to like block your pancreatic ducts. It blocks your bronchial tubes. It blocks a lot of things. And as I've said, it causes significant respiratory infections where most children or people that have cystic fibrosis spend quite a bit of time in the hospital. My children and the children that are displayed in this particular movie, 5 Feet Apart, have such rigorous activities and routines and things that they have to do in order to keep their lungs clear. So, the average life expectancy for a patient that has cystic fibrosis, according to just your regular Google searches or whatever, is the age of 37. But I am a big believer that no matter what the statistics say, that there are going to be some new developments and new therapies and treatments that will come out that will allow those children that have cystic fibrosis to have many more years than some limited 37 years on this earth. I'm just crazy enough to believe that something's going to come out that will serve as a level of a cure for cystic fibrosis. Now, with cystic fibrosis right now, they're saying there is no cure, and there are so many other things that are associated when you do the research on this. But today I want to talk about the movie 5 Feet Apart. And this movie is about 2 fun-loving teenagers that meet at a hospital, and they're both like a part of this clinical trial. Now, the clinical trial is interesting in itself because you have to follow a very strict regimen. No matter what, you have to be compliant and make sure that you take all of the medications that's outlined for you during this particular clinical trial. But both of these CF patients, one being Stella Grant and Will Newman, these particular children, 17 years old, are totally opposites of each other. You have Stella, who is like right by the book. She's like, I'm doing it this way. I am going to stick to the strict schedule that's given. And this is the bottom line. I'm not going to deviate for any reason. So every day at the exact same time, she takes her medications. She takes her nebulizer treatments. She puts on her shaky vest. She shakes those lungs up every day for the exact designated time. Consistently, without fail, because she wants to be compliant, for the clinical trial that she's a part of. But then you have this guy who's this fun-loving, free will, free-spirited kind of guy. He's like, I'm breaking all the rules. I'm not even trying to do whatever they're telling me to do to be compliant. Who are they? I'll do what I want to do. My lungs will be fine. I won't go into naming the children in my house that are in that category, but I do have two of them that are in that category. And I know they wouldn't want me to put them out on mainstream like this, because they will be like, Mom, I cannot believe that you said my name, my good government name on your show. So I'm not going to go into exposing every nook and cranny about them, because they don't really want their stuff exposed at that level. So I kind of respect that. I respect that. And that's their right to have the level of exposure about their particular situation exposed at the level they choose to have it exposed. So I honor that. But I will tell you that they're not that compliant. And so as a result of that, they kind of remind me of the character Will in the show. And so he's like, in the movie, they're fun-loving, free-spirited. Hey, this disease hasn't gotten me yet, so guess what? I'll be good. I'll beat this. I'm fine. I got this under control. That's Will. Will Newman in the movie is that kind of guy. So some kind of way, in this particular movie, in 5 Feet Apart, these two characters collide. They meet. And they start to really not hit it off that well right from the beginning, because they don't like each other, mainly because Stella is like, you've got to be kidding me. You have the opportunity to participate in a clinical trial, and you're not going to comply with the rules and the regulations. And he's like, you have to be kidding me. You're like so starchy and so stuck up and trying to be by the book and have your shaky vest and have all of your medications. And what is it all for? At the end of the day, we still have cystic fibrosis. That's one way to look at it, right? So in the fact that this movie is out on the big screen, trying to educate the world about the disease state of cystic fibrosis is to be commended, in my opinion. I'm quite honored as a mother, and I know my husband is, as a father of 3 children that have cystic fibrosis, none of which we even knew had it at birth. So to find out that our children have this disease, and to find out what's required in order for them to survive and to be able to thrive and to be able to function with this sticky level of mucus trying to overtake their lungs on a consistent daily basis, is something that it takes a lot of training. But you really almost, as parents and as children, you feel like you're a physician yourself, because you do so much research and you go through so many different trainings. We can't get a better medical team. The team that we have at Levine's Children's Hospital, our doctors are Dr. Chada, Dr. Shellhays, Dr. Champion. These doctors, they are all in on making sure that we are fully educated about our children and their lungs and how they can thrive with this particular disease state. We have a team of medical professionals. It's about 8 of them. Beth and all kinds of people, Rob, and you name it. You name it, we have people, Cynthia, we have people that come in every single time we come to Levine's Children's Hospital, and all 8 to 10 of them come around and spend time with our children to find out nutritionally how they're doing, to find out how they're doing with their actual regimen, and making sure that our children have a specific compliance schedule, making sure that their vest works, because they're all on life vest machines that shake their lungs up, and it's like constantly like this. I mean, you're shaking the lungs up at a very intense rate for about 20 or 30 minutes at a time. It is this movie, when you go to see 5 Feet Apart, it is true what you're seeing as far as the regimen that the teenagers are going through. And so that's something that I'm grateful that it came to the big screen for that reason. I'm going to tell you some more of my thoughts on this, and we'll go a little bit deeper. So in the movie, it's called 5 Feet Apart. But really, anyone that's done any research on the disease state of cystic fibrosis knows that really, technically, you're supposed to be 6 feet apart at all times if you are in the same vicinity of another cystic fibrosis patient. Why? Because technically speaking, cystic fibrosis patients are contagious to each other. They're not contagious to anybody else in the world. But together, if 2 cystic fibrosis patients are put together in the same room, they can cross-contaminate and have infections that maybe the other one does not currently have. Which is really interesting, because when we're at the hospital, and my daughter, she'll be at the hospital, she stays 10 days at a time, and in the hallway, we literally have to check out to see if any other CF patient is walking the hallways at the same time. So she can't just go and be like a regular old fun-loving child and, hey, I want to go on the roof. I want to go and enjoy the experience. No, she has to suit up. She has to sign out to make sure that she is officially not going to cross paths with another cystic fibrosis patients. There's so many different parameters to having cystic fibrosis. And even in school, with my daughter, I'll give you an example in school, and I talk about her freely because she has like a Facebook page, Jayla's Journey with Cystic Fibrosis, and she's a free-loving person about sharing the fact that she has this disease state. Again, I told you I have 2 more children, which I would not want to keep that a secret from you, but I don't put all of the details out for them because they're more private. But they still do have that disease state. So with my daughter Jayla, what happens is when we go to the hospital, we automatically make arrangements for her to go onto the roof and play with her friends that come and visit, as long as there are no other CF patients that are in the hallway at the same time. Now, how does it work in school for her? She's not contagious at all to any other person in the world. Actually, people in the world are more contagious to her, because a general cold or a general cough that we may have can actually cause her to have significant lung infection or significant lung function decrease. And so people that don't have cystic fibrosis actually can harm a person that has cystic fibrosis more than we think, when they're just like coughing, trying to get the mucus up, that, whoa, what does that person have? My daughter, for example, with the cystic fibrosis, she has to cough. My children have to cough because they have to get that sticky mucus from outside of their lungs that are sticking on the lining of their lungs. They have to cough to get it up. They can't take cough medicine. Cough medicine suppresses the cough. They can't take cough medicine. No cystic fibrosis patients are allowed to take cough medicine, because that's saying that we want you to suppress that cough and keep it from happening. With cystic fibrosis, it has to happen. So we have to let it come up and get that mucus from being stuck on their lungs. Oh gosh, this brings up a lot of what I deal with as a mom of 5 children, 3 of which have cystic fibrosis. The routine in our house is, sometimes my husband uses the word remarkable, and I'm like, why did you use that word? He said, because it's remarkable. It's like unbelievable. It's amazing, to say the least. The routine is very structured, but it's very intense, and it requires a lot of their devoted attention and time and effort and sterilization. It's so much to making sure that things happen properly when a patient has cystic fibrosis. So I know that I speak on behalf of the entire CF community when I say that listen, we're in this battle together, and if your child has CF, you're totally already on the same page with me. But if you don't have a child that has CF, but you know that you know someone that does, hopefully this video that we're doing now gives you the opportunity to better understand what that person is dealing with on a daily basis. So, one thing that I loved about the movie 5 Feet Apart is the fact that it enlightens people about the actual disease state, cystic fibrosis. Another thing that I really like is that it shows in the movie innovative therapies that are coming to the market to help patients that have cystic fibrosis have a longer life and an opportunity to have a better fighting chance. Clinical trials that children can participate in to be able to officially have a solution. Clinical trials that children can participate in to have a solution for their disease state. I am so excited about the movie 5 Feet Apart, and I hope you are as well. Another thing that I think this movie shows you is that there's astronomical cost associated with the treatment regimen. I know, for example, one of the products alone that my children have to have on a daily basis, it costs over $10,000 a month for a 30-day supply. These costs are, when I say astronomical, without any level of assistance, I can never imagine how I would be able to cover, my husband and I would be able to cover the cost of these medications. The machine that shakes their lungs costs $12,000 to $16,000 for you to be able to purchase the equipment. And I've had an opportunity where my church did like Mother Tara and several people in my church came together and did a fundraiser to help raise some funds for my daughter to get a vest that she needed. I'm telling you that people, when they do know what you're dealing with, they care. Most of the times people really put any issues aside and they come to your aid to try to be a blessing to you. If they know that you have 3 children with this disease state, with limited so-called life expectancy of 37 years old, most people kind of take down any barriers and they can relate to the fact that every child deserves a fighting chance. So I hope that so far what I've shared with you will make you go at least see the movie 5 Feet Apart. Now keep in mind it is a movie, so it's a lot of glamorized stuff, and it's regular teenagers that fall in love, and so you cannot tell them that they shouldn't be together whenever we know they shouldn't be together. But I'm not going to spoil all of the details of the movie. That's why I haven't gone into any detail of the movie. I don't know if you've noticed that yet. I've just kind of kept the surface, but the movie is good and it's fun, and some parts of it are interesting because I'm like, okay, now they didn't even have to go to that level with this movie, but I won't tell you what level. You can check that out for yourself. A couple of things in there that I think are concerns for me is the fact that I know that other CF patients are going to go to the theater together and they're going to be sitting there. I know when my husband and I went, we came to see the movie on the first day before it actually came out. And we were like hearing other people in there and they were coughing. And so I was like, I bet you it's a bunch of CF patients sitting here watching 5 Feet Apart, which this environment alone is more detrimental to them coming in to see the movie together, because they're not all supposed to be in that room in the theater together at the same time. So I don't know if there should have been like some kind of check-in situation, putting a mask on if you're going to go, if you're a CF patient, but still make sure you take the necessary precautions to cover yourself. If you're going to go to the movie, wear your mask if you know that you have CF, because there may be other CF patients there. So in the movie 5 Feet Apart, the thing is with these 2 teenagers that are hospitalized and they are completely madly in love with each other, it takes you on a journey through teenage love is really what it does. And I fell in love with the movie, but then I also, at different phases in the movie, I cried out loud. My husband was like, are you like crying out loud? I mean, like officially bawling to the point where I was making so much noise in the theater. But obviously I'm not going to tell you what those points are, because then that would spoil it for you. And I'm a little more crafty than that. So I'm not going to tell you what parts I cried out loud on. What I would say is just take a moment and go and see the movie for yourself. And I think the reason that I'm so much of an advocate now about going to see it is because it does give people the opportunity to learn about this disease state, cystic fibrosis, and the way that it attacks the lungs, and how ultimately the only way cystic fibrosis patients that have this permanent lung damage, so-called survive, is through lung transplants. And sometimes people have complications with them. Sometimes people have tremendous success with lung transplants. So, you have people all over the place when it comes to their philosophies on lung transplants. I know that if that's what was required for my children, I'll do whatever it takes, because I want to make sure my children stay here on this earth with me as long as humanly possible. As long as humanly possible. So I think the takeaway for today's talk that we're having here, and I feel like I've made you comfortable enough to just totally understand cystic fibrosis and want to learn more about the disease state. Take some time on your own and learn about it, and learn what people are dealing with that have children that have this disease. And even some of you may have friends that are adults that have had this growing up, and now they're trying to still balance their lives with this life debilitating disease state, cystic fibrosis. So I hope that today, through our journey, our time together, that you've learned a little bit more about cystic fibrosis, that you want to go see the movie 5 Feet Apart, and you'll take some tissue, because you'll need some tissue. You definitely will need a little bit of tissue. And whoever you know that has cystic fibrosis, that you'll have just a little bit more compassion towards them for whatever they are encountering on a daily basis that you may or may not even know existed until you saw the movie 5 Feet Apart. All right, that's my spill on everything. I will tell you this: if you have children, you have family, adults, husband, wives, siblings, mom, dad, love on your family as much as you humanly possibly can, because there's no guarantee how much time we'll have together on this earth. But whatever time you do have, cherish it and just relish in the moment of what God has given you with your loved one. No matter what disease state they have, just act just like they are going to live unlimited amount of time, because y'all are going to just have the greatest life together, and encourage each other and love on each other, and kiss your children and hug your children and tell your children you love them. Let them know, I love you and I need you and I believe in you. My daughter believes wholeheartedly that she can accomplish anything in life. My children believe, all of my children, not just my daughter. I keep saying my daughter because she doesn't mind me talking about her disease state. But I have children that believe that they can do anything. And all of them are superstars within their own right. And I'm so honored to have Frank Jr., Ivan, Gabriel, Jeremiah, and Jayla as my children that God would allow me to bring forth into this world. So, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the Kim Jacobs Show today. And please go check out 5 Feet Apart.